Hi, assalamu alaikum. Hey, this is Brad Addo, aka the Demi Shake, and yes, I am a Demi Shake because I refuse to rock the long beard and rock a sheet over my head. That's just not my style, my culture. I don't have to be Muslim to do that. Anyway, I'm coming at you today because I want to give you some more information about the Hadiths and why Allah says that we should stay away from them. Not because Brad Addo says we should stay away from them. I gave you something in the first video, so here's another video. What I'm doing this time, I'm just breaking down the core of the whole Sunnah of the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him. Now you got to understand the core of the whole Sunnah, the Hadiths, and everything. Why the majority of Muslims follow the Sunnah according to what they say the Sunnah of the Prophet, is because of the Prophet's last sermon. So today we're talking about the Prophet's last sermon. Well, if you are a true believer, or you have some questions about the last sermon, I found the fraudulent in the last sermon. There's a few things I want to point out, and it's clear as day once Allah opens your eyes. So first, let's just get straight into it. The last sermon, which is the core of all Muslims and why they believe that we gotta follow the way of the Prophet, is because it's listed in the last sermon, which initiated the Bukhari books, the Sahih Muslim books, all these other books, but it's like 5, 6 great Hadith writers, you know. Um, so this is the core of all of that. Because without that last sermon, there's nothing else saying that we should follow this way. So might as well just stick the dagger in the heart, right? So this is what I'm doing. Let's just start with number one. They say that this was the Prophet's last sermon, this last khutbah, among a crowd of thousands of people, right? They say it was the last sermon. Head scratcher. What was the sermon before that? What was the sermon before that? How about the last 5 sermons? About the first 10 sermons? About the last 10 sermons? How come out of all the speeches, and I'm pretty sure the Prophet did speeches among his people more than just the last sermon, how come only one is documented? That's a head scratcher, right? Only one is documented. Not the last 5, not the last 10. And who knows if that was the last one documented? Who says that that was the last sermon? Matter of fact, that's the only sermon. Now, it's a few things that would have happened. Because isn't it strange? The last sermon is the only sermon we have documented. Out of all those khutbahs, we know he didn't miss Juma. We know that didn't happen. So all of a sudden, someone just said, I'm gonna write this one now. And the last one that they wrote, the only one that they wrote, is supposedly the last one. That's a coincidence, or something else is going on. For one, you gotta understand the people. They were not allowed to write down anything the Prophet said during this time. The only thing the people could write down was the Quran, and that was those were the Sahabas who was to write down the Quran when it was given to him, revealed to him. So they wasn't writing down his khutbahs. I mean, can you imagine 23 years he's delivering the service and all the khutbahs that would have been documented? Okay, that would have been lovely, but only one got documented? That's fraudulent. So either one thing had to happen. Either they wrote all the khutbahs down and they only just pick and chose one, or they wrote none of the khutbahs down and this one is the one that's fraudulent. Now, they wrote nothing. The Sahabas and everybody, they did exactly what the Prophet commanded them to do, why he was there. Because you know what? They were his followers. So, for one, the last sermon can't be the only sermon. You see what I'm saying? It has to be more before and after. This was not the last. So that's what I want you to think about. That doesn't even sound right. The last sermon is the only sermon ever documented. Okay? I just want to make you think about that. Okay? The people were commanded not to write anything except what? Al-Quran. Okay? Nothing else. Moving on. Okay? Um, in the Quran, in the Holy Quran, the book that all Muslims follow, regardless if you follow Hadith and Sunni, Shia, you still follow the Quran no matter what. In the Quran, Surah 17, Ayat 77, and that's not just Ayat 77, it's plenty other ayats as well. But in the Quran, it actually has Allah's Sunnah. Okay, and it's listed throughout the Quran, several other places of the Quran, but this is the last one that I can recall. And I'm gonna read it out to you if I can. It says, this is Surah 17, Ayat 77. It says that our established way for those we had sent down before you of our messages, and you will not find in our way any alteration. Now, the word Sunnah is basically saying our way, our teachings, and so forth. So that's what the word Sunnah means. So if you replace, now let's read this when putting the word Sunnah in there because that's all it stands for. Okay, um, that is our established Sunnah for those we have sent before you of our messages, and you will not find in our Sunnah any alterations. So that's all the word Sunnah means. So what I did, I just read that ayat to you with Allah's words, okay? And that's basically saying that Allah established His Sunnah in the Quran already. Now, that's just in one ayat. You'll find this as you start to understand what the word Sunnah and Hadith means and all that stuff. They hide behind these words, the true meaning of it. But you can look it up yourself and you'll understand what the word Sunnah means. Just the way, just you know, the way it's the way of it's the way. That's all it is. So you already see Allah already has this Sunnah already in the Quran. Okay. Now let me make a good example. Okay, moving on. I just keep that thought. Keep that thought. Okay. Let's just say your mother made for you the best. Let's say everything your mother ever did as far as cooking. Let's say she put it in a book. Okay, she wrote down every recipe for everything she ever cooked. Every meatloaf, every hamburger, every sweet potato pie, every cake, macaroni dish, casseroles, everything your mother ever cooked. She wrote down the recipes, put it in one book. And she said, you know what? Here's this book. I will on to you. I pass on to you this book. Everything that I've ever cooked, every recipe is in here for everything that I've ever cooked. Every piece of bread I've made, every dish, every sweet potato pie, every cake, every pecan pie. I love pecan pie, by the way. Everything, every chicken, fried chicken, whatever you want, it's already in the book. Okay, you got this book. Okay, so you start cooking directly from this book, and it tastes exactly just like the way your mother used to cook it because she cooked it. Now you're cooking it. You have the exact recipes. So guess what you do? You give this book to your child, your daughter or your son, right? And you say, look, I'm giving you this book. Everything I've ever cooked is in this book. The recipes down to a tablespoon of salt or a teaspoon of sugar, whatever the case may be. You have this book, so you don't have to worry about something tasting the way I cooked it because you have the exact recipes. Now, in addition to that, your son or daughter says, "Awesome, thank you," and you say, and this is what you say. In addition to that, I'm going to give you my sweet potato recipe as well. I'm going to give you my sweet potato recipe as well. And then you question and you be like, well, didn't you say your sweet potato recipe is already in this book? And you say, yeah, I did. Okay, then why are you giving me something that's already in the book? If the sweet potato recipe is already in the book, why are you giving me this additional recipe? It's the same recipe that's in the book, so you don't need to give me that recipe. Okay, you got it, right? Recipe is already in the book. Moving on. So let's go ahead into dissecting the prophet's last um his last what sermon. Okay, now going into the prophet's last sermon, this is what it says. Okay, I'm gonna just start off. I'm gonna read it briefly. Okay, it says the farewell sermon. Okay, O people, just as you regarded this month, this day, this city is sacred, so regard the life and property of every Muslim, so on. Okay, if you scan through this last sermon, you will realize that it's a lot of stuff that's already in the Quran, so it's really not anything different. But here's the part I want to point out to you. It says, "O people, no prophet or apostle will come after me, and no new faith will be born. Reason well, therefore, O people, understand the words which I convey to you." Here's the kicker. I leave behind me two things, the Quran and the Sunnah. And if you follow these, you will never go astray. Okay, that's what I want to get to you. He says he leaves behind two things, the Quran and the Sunnah. Now, in some places, if you look at the other sermon, it says the Quran and my Sunnah. Okay, so you got two things. One of them says the Quran and the Sunnah. The other one says the Quran and my Sunnah. Didn't I, in that example before, didn't I say, and I read that Allah already has His Sunnah in the Quran? So if His Sunnah is already in the Quran, okay, then where does my Sunnah come from? Or the Sunnah? He doesn't have any Sunnah. Okay, he doesn't have any Sunnah because the Sunnah of God's way is already in the Quran. Allah says that in Surah 17, Ayat 77. This is our established Sunnah, and you will find no changing in our Sunnah. And we all know the Prophet didn't create his own Sunnah. So this has been tampered with. If not, the whole letter is tampered with. Because the Prophet didn't have any Sunnah. His Sunnah was the Sunnah he was already following in the Quran. Unless you're trying to say the Prophet had a different Sunnah from Allah's. If that's what you want to agree to. You're trying to say when there was two Sunnah, you got the Sunnah of God and then you got the Sunnah of the Prophet. No, his Sunnah, he didn't have any Sunnah. He only followed the Sunnah that was in the book. So with that being said, that is the fraudulent within this letter. If not the whole letter fraud, because where's the other sermons? If this is the last sermon, where's the last 5? Where's the last 10? So how we only have one sermon out of all the other sermons, unless he, never did any speech, and this is fraud. No matter how you look at it, this whole last sermon doesn't even make sense once you start to dissect it. I leave behind you two things: the Quran and my Sunnah, or the Quran and the Sunnah. There is no and. Once again, there is no and because the Quran already has the Sunnah in there. I just want you to ponder on it. If the Quran already has God's Sunnah, then what is this and Sunnah? That's the fraudulent in the letter. Somebody put that down there, so then you can start deviating from the right path. You can start going astray. You can start following Bukhari and Sahih Muslim. And how this person didn't even want to put their name, and it's just authentic Muslim. Come on, didn't even want to document their name. Really? Anyway, this is just something to think about, just to ponder upon. For those that's kind of shaky about whether to believe in Hadiths or not, if we're supposed to follow them or not, from God's book, we aren't supposed to follow them. So if you're kind of standing on the ropes, I hope this brings clarity to you. May Allah guide you to the straight path and keep you on that path. Anyway, thank you for joining in, and don't forget to check out more videos from me and Sister Salim, inshallah. All right, assalamu alaikum.